Jesus' final journey in Jerusalem, a dramatic map of his last days. A new map created by theologian and author John Walsh vividly traces the final 7 days of Jesus Christ's life in Jerusalem, revealing the sacred and dramatic events that led to his crucifixion. Each site marks a critical moment in this divine narrative, bringing the Gospels to life through the streets of the Holy City. 7 days before death, cleansing the temple. The journey begins at the Temple Mount, where Jesus made his daily teachings. But on this day, 7 days before his death, he found the sacred space defiled by merchants and moneylenders. Filled with righteous anger, Jesus overturned their tables and drove them out, declaring, "My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." The Temple Mount, now a walled compound housing the Dome of the Rock, is one of the holiest sites in Judaism and Christianity. It stands as a witness to Jesus' bold declaration and his defiance of corruption within sacred spaces. 3 days before death, the Last Supper. 3 days before his death, Jesus gathered with his disciples in the upper room, sharing what would become known as the Last Supper. As they broke bread and shared wine, Jesus foretold his betrayal by one of those closest to him. This night, charged with tension and sorrow, also marked the institution of the Eucharist, a sacred ritual in Christianity. In this intimate yet somber moment, Jesus prepared his followers for what was to come, even as the shadow of betrayal loomed over the room. 3 days before death, arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane. Later that same night, Jesus retreated to the Garden of Gethsemane at the foot of the Mount of Olives. In the stillness of the garden, Jesus prayed with deep anguish, knowing the suffering that awaited him. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered by the arrival of Roman soldiers, led by Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus with a kiss. 3 days before his death, Jesus was arrested and taken away, marking the beginning of his trial and ultimate sacrifice. 1 day before death, the trial at the house of Caiaphas. As dawn broke, Jesus was taken to the house of Caiaphas, the residence of the high priest. 1 day before his crucifixion, Jesus stood trial for treason and blasphemy, accused of claiming to be the Son of God. The trial was filled with false witnesses and accusations, yet Jesus remained steadfast and silent, a symbol of unyielding strength in the face of injustice. 1 day before death, Herod's palace and sentencing. From Caiaphas' house, Jesus was taken to Herod's palace. Here, he stood trial before Jewish leaders and Roman officials, including Pontius Pilate. 1 day before his death, the crowd demanded his crucifixion, and Pilate, despite finding no guilt in him, succumbed to the mob's cries. Jesus was sentenced to die. Mocked and humiliated, Jesus was made to carry the cross that would soon take his life. The streets of Jerusalem echoed with jeers as the weight of the world bore down on his shoulders. Day of death, crucifixion at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The map then takes us to the site of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was nailed to the cross. On this day, known as Good Friday, Jesus endured unimaginable suffering. Darkness fell over the land as he cried out, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." With his final breath, Jesus declared, "It is finished." The world would never be the same. The garden tomb, burial, and the dawn of hope. Finally, the map marks the garden tomb, where Jesus' lifeless body was laid to rest. A borrowed tomb for a humble king, it became a symbol of ultimate hope. 3 days later, Christians believe Jesus rose from the dead, defeating death and bringing salvation to the world. A journey of faith and sacrifice. This dramatic map transforms the streets of Jerusalem into a living testament of faith, sacrifice, and redemption. 7 days of teachings, betrayal, trials, and ultimate triumph remind us of the profound journey that changed the course of history forever.
The Mount of Transfiguration is a significant event in the Bible because it reveals profound spiritual truths about Jesus Christ, his mission, and God's plan for humanity. Below are key reasons why it holds importance, supported by Scripture. Revelation of Jesus' divine nature. On the Mount, Jesus' appearance changed, and his glory as the Son of God was revealed. This event affirmed his divine nature to the disciples present, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. Matthew 17, verse 2. This demonstrated that Jesus was not merely a man, but God incarnate, emphasizing his authority and divinity. Fulfillment of the law and the prophets. Moses and Elijah appeared with Jesus, symbolizing the law, Moses, and the prophets, Elijah. This affirmed that Jesus was the fulfillment of both. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elias talking with him. Matthew 17, verse 3. Their presence signifies the unity of the Old Testament and New Testament, showing that Jesus is the Messiah foretold by Scripture. Affirmation of Jesus' mission by God the Father. During the event, God the Father spoke from heaven, affirming Jesus as his beloved Son and commanding the disciples to listen to him. While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. Matthew 17:5. This divine affirmation reinforced Jesus' authority and mission to the disciples. Strengthening the faith of the disciples. The event strengthened the faith of Peter, James, and John by giving them a glimpse of Jesus' glory and his future kingdom. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. And Jesus came and touched them and said, Arise, and be not afraid. Matthew 17, verse 6-7. This experience prepared them for the trials ahead, especially Jesus' crucifixion, foreshadowing of Jesus' resurrection and second coming. The Transfiguration was a foretaste of the glorified Christ that would be fully revealed in his resurrection and his second coming. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Matthew 16:27. This served as a reminder that Jesus would return in glory to establish his eternal kingdom. 6. Encouragement for believers. The Transfiguration reminds Christians that the suffering of this world is temporary and that glory awaits those who follow Christ. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Romans 8:18. It encourages believers to remain steadfast in their faith, trusting in God's promises.